Children of the Guild, The Waif and the Warrior. This is chapter 1. The tent flap rustled, and Marcel stepped inside without knocking. Good morning, Cade, he said, brushing dust from his sleeve. I wasn't sure your little guild would survive to see another fair. Cade straightened from the small desk where where he'd arranged the day's ledger. He met Marcel's handshake stiffly. We've done well enough. Marcel laughed. Yeah, he looked around. You're barely hanging on here. Look around, Cade. You'll break before they ever hire you. We'll find work, Jade stated, jaw tight. Marcel stepped closer, voice dropping. And you'll march the children to their death. It up. Cade's eyes burned as they flicked to the battered courtyard. They've more grit than any pressed soldier. My son, he stopped, his chest tightening. Damn it, he said too much. Marcel smirked knowingly. Cade straightened, his voice firm now. We'll see who starves first. Get out. Marcel gave a low laugh, saying, He's not your son. He's a curse, always has been, as he slipped out. The tent flap closed, leaving Cade alone with the quiet flapping of the canvas and the faint sounds of the courtyard beyond. Cade reached for a tent pole and squeezed his rage into it. Joom pulled off his helmet and squinted at the setting sun. Still enough light to find food and maybe ale. The contest had lasted longer than he liked, but in the end, he won. He usually did. At the yearly fair, he had one goal: remind the Empire why they still feared his name. No man could match him face to face in heavy plate, duel, or real fight. These opponents were lucky today was the friendly kind. Still, his body ached more than last year, and it soured his mood. The Empire didn't crave blood, just the illusion of it. Jim hated stage combat. He'd strangled men on real battlefields under a brutal sun, their lives decided over mills and land. But here, it was theater. And theater brought clients. Clients fed his guild. Syphis. Now, all he wanted was ale, food, maybe a woman. He winced. His armor smelled like socks on a corpse. These public displays weren't real. But by the sacred whore, they were draining and noisy with applause. Hoya Winnan, second in command of the Syphis Guild, waited nearby, arms crossed, looking insufferably clean and thin. Hoya thought Joom's head was the shape and texture of a potato. To him, Joom was as unrefined as he was deadly. Every interaction felt like it could end with a blade, one misplaced word, and he'd be mulch. Luckily, Hoya's mask was his strongest asset. Good fight out there, Joom. By the gods, better than last year. Hoya clapped him on his back. I'm hungry, Joom growled, in no mood for pleasantries. This way, my dirt-eating friend, Hoya said, gesturing in his foppish way. The insult was calculated. Joom could smell fear. Dirt-eating made this empire see rat, Joom growled. The slur had cut deeper than it should. Shahob was the desert capital, home of the so-called dirt eaters. His people came from the sand and windswept vastness. Hoya should have been groveling. Instead, he smirked. Yes. Hoya dismissed the returned insult. Clan Akawan has kebabs, potatoes, ale. They have dancing. We're invited. Leading with food and women. Always a safe bet. Akawan. Clan Akawan are crafters. They're rich. Their ale is good. Their girls are pretty, and they're marrying into Khalduld, Hoya said, dropping the name like a prize. Jim arched an eyebrow. Khalduld? Khalduld? Shipping guild that ran the trade routes from Shahub south to Zaroon, the kingdom of Tavaxan's jewel on the sea, and they never let Durham forget about it. They came upon a large crowd spilling from a small, ruddy-looking mercenary encampment. People cheered, blocking the path, stumbling. Cheap ale filled Joom's nostrils. You know what this is? Jim gestured dismissively. Tassos, I aside, pointing at the guild banner. It's some test of strength game. Idiots have been wasting time on it all day. This register doesn't even recognize it, and some girl is champion. It took no more motivation. Jim Kirk pushed to the front of the crowd like a stampeding elephant. As he moved, he unfastened heavy plates of armor, not because he needed to. He didn't expect much of a fight, because the sweat-soaked stink was unbearable. One buckle after another dropped to the ground with a clink until he stood stripped to his undertunic and bracers. Through the dust, Jim saw a willowy girl sparring a man he'd seen earlier. The man's nose gushed blood. And as the fighter regained his composure, she darted between his legs. The opponent let go of the staff to maintain balance and to protect his jewels. The crowd cheered and booed. The match was lost. I'll challenge the champion, Jim called. One kick to the chest would end this nonsense. Another competition where someone with no business fighting was gaining momentum in the eyes of the right and the rich. The girl spun on her heel and looked up at Jim. Her dark eyes sparkled with delight. Her hands on the staff went behind her back. There was no fear in this one, Jim noted. A year of true battle would change that. He'd seen it before. Cade? The girl asked, gesturing to a short, dark man with her chin. There's a price to fight, sir, Cade said, stepping in. Jim rolled his eyes. Of course there is. He didn't smell the scam until he stepped in it. Like dog shit. Of course there is. Cade, guildmaster and master of ceremonies, repeated, tossing his hands into the air. The crowd cheered as if trained. They'd been through this before. That's my beer money, Cade, you thief. A voice shouted to general laughter as the guild master made an elaborate bow. It seemed that the Tassos Guild had been selling beer and mead to accompany the entertainment. How much? Jim asked impatiently. 2 silver, Cade answered, enthusiastically gesturing with one hand held high. The crowd drunkenly cheered. Hoya handed the coin over and clapped Jim on the shoulder. To back out now would be a bad mark. The crowd would note it. Rumors would spread. The rules, Cade began, and staggered only a bit. Cade was perhaps more than 3 dunks into his cups. Regardless, he stated the rules with the practiced ease of a man who had been saying them all day, quickly and without repetition. Both opponents start with their hands on the staff. Hand positions can be adjusted, but if a hand leaves the staff, it cannot be placed back on. Goal? Remove both of your opponent's hands from the staff. Begin! Jim started the way most men did. He jerked the staff towards himself. The girl stumbled a bit, bouncing off the staff with a giggle. Pretty, Jim thought. He pushed her away, and she bounced backward, giggling again. He imagined her face smeared with blood, her jaw broken, her life extinguished. He kicked hard, but she was out of range. Her smile was enraging. She was innocent and cocky and foolish. She winked at him. Actually winked. June wanted to plant her face first into the dirt, just to wipe it off. He twisted the staff, and the girl twisted with it, ducking her head under her arm. At the end of the spin, while his arms were crossed, her arms were straight. Her back was to him. Infuriating. It was like punching water. Before he could untwist, she jumped, kicking both feet into his stomach. He bent forward from the blow. June hadn't been hit that hard in the stomach without armor in years. The girl spun around the pole without ever letting go, performing maneuvers that could dislocate a shoulder. She kicked him in the nose. It exploded into blood, and while Jim's vision was still a bright white light, he felt her heel smash into his hand, then his wrists. He let go, rage taking over. He wanted to grab her by the throat and squeeze. When he let go, she dropped to the ground, ducking between his legs. Jim felt the blood rise to his cheeks. He'd seen this part. He took an exaggerated step back, grabbed the bottom of the staff, and swung it in a high arc, using both his hands. The girl followed the staff into the air. Her grip failed. She was sent flying. She bounced twice, rolled, and her skirt slid up, revealing her dirty legs and dust-covered small clothes. She rolled again, exposing a scratched red bottom. Jim smiled, resting the staff on his shoulder. The crowd oohed and awed, some for the throw, some for the tumble, and more than one for the flash of legs and small clothes. Dre felt the cool night air on her thighs. Her blood roared. Rage, embarrassment, panic. Get up, stupid! Your skirt's over your head. Somewhere, a man whistled low and called, "Best move of the match, miss." Then a drunk called from the back, chiming in, "Marry me." With a burst of energy only a teenage girl with her underwear showing could summon, she sprang to her feet. Her hand yanked her skirt down. The other stabbed the air towards June. He laughed. "You cheated!" The crowd roared. Some agreed, some disagreed, and many just laughed. June laughed too, but it was a dark sound. He turned to Cade. "You'll lead her to her grave if this is all she's learning," he said, tossing the staff to Cade before he vanished into the crowd. "Swaggering, sand-stained bastard!" Drake cursed his disappearing back as Cade set up another fight. She discovered that part of her skirt was still a great deal higher than it should be. Dre rubbed her bruised bottom, pouting, until, of course, she saw Roma sigh, bouncing up to her. It was a skip, but every part of her seemed to be in a sort of giddy, joyous motion, and as soon as Dre's eyes took her in, Roma's embrace overtook her. "That was amazing," Roma shouted in Dre's ear. "Hardly. I just showed everyone my small clothes." Roma released her and giggled. "Well, that wasn't my favorite part." "Oh, you had a favorite part?" Roma bounced into a bow stance, one foot in front of the other. She pointed at an invisible Droom, tossing her head back dramatically. "You cheated!" "Yeah, and everyone laughed," Dre sighed, resting her head on Roma's shoulder. "They were just glad you were okay," Roma cooed, rubbing Dre's back and kissing the deep red crown of her filthy hair. "Let's have a drink." "It was good, Dre. We almost had him," Sen offered. "You think so, Sen?" "My butt doesn't." Dre laughed and mussed his brown hair and pulled him close to her. "You want a drink?" Yeah, but..." Sen pushed Dre away, looking at her seriously. "I have a tournament tomorrow." "You do? You're gonna make the whole guild proud. Riding and..." "What?" Roma asked. "Single combat, double gauche." His chin lifted proudly. "That's my style," Dre smiled. "Sinister hand," Roma whispered ominously. "Deadliest of all hands, not to be confused with clumsy hand or sticky hand." Sen glared. "Shut up." Roma stuck out her tongue, but Sin continued. "They're good. Medium-sized daggers that let you get in close. Built to deflect anything. Speed and precision over brute strength. It's double left. The sinister hand. It suits me." Sin sounded like he was quoting Cade in a training session. Roma grinned. Dre nodded. "You're gonna get bigger, though. One day you'll be a big squirrel." "What's the name for that, Roma?" Roma shrugged and smiled. "I will." Sen nodded. "But I hope not. Fastest riders are light. They don't burn the horse." "True. But it doesn't matter how fast you are. If when you get there, you're too small to attack," Dre commented, patting Sen's head. Sen laughed. "Have you ever seen me ride, Dre? Besides, it's mostly archery." Cade waved off the trio, confirming that she was done for the night. "So, where to? Rolling Thunder?" Roma asked excitedly. The Rolling Thunder clan was musicians, dancers, and entertainers. Naturally, their encampment was straight debauchery at night. Roma's favorite place because of the drums and dancing. The drums were the source of their name. "I have to make an appearance at Clan Akawan," Dre sighed, unhappily remembering. "For your mom?" Roma asked, knowing the answer. "By hill and stone, she is the worst," Roma cursed. "She is," Sanjab agreed solemnly. "Bet you wish you were an orphan like me and Roma, free to do whatever we like." "You mean whatever Cade likes," Roma corrected. "Same thing," Sen jeered. "Ah, come on though, Dre. Why are you still even part of your clan? It's ridiculous," Roma said, pulling on Dre's arm as if she was trying to tug her away from it. "It's just not that simple when you have parents," Dre laughed. Her mom was a handful, sure, but she loved her family. "Let me change, wash up, and then we'll go for dinner at Clan Akawan. Then we'll put little Senjab to bed." She ruffled his hair, and he pulled away angrily. "Then we go down some Rolling Thunder." The three ducked back into the recruit tent, and the girls changed for dancing and dinner. Sen sat with his back to him, whittling a stick. The stick was already half destroyed, but judging by the scowl on his face, it deserved it. Chapter 2. Dance and the Dagger. After washing and changing, Dre tried to look composed. She lived in two worlds, at war with each other at every step. In one world, the one she chose, these marks were badges of honor. In the world her mother chose for her, they were marks of disgrace. She rebraided her hair and dabbed powder over the worst of it. Her eye was already swelling. A scratch on her chin would darken by nightfall. The three headed to Clan Akawan's pavilion. Clan Akawan wasn't really a clan, not anymore. They were more like a guild now, with their lace, buttons, carvings, and jewelry. She heard elders whisper about clever marriages and cleverer apprenticeships. It worked. They were growing. The event was somber, with quiet music and subdued dancing. A table groaned with kebabs, greens, and sugared things that Dre didn't have the appetite for. Fatia was already somewhere. People mingled, ate, and danced. June noticed her the second she entered. He was surprised, not expecting her. Hoya, he whispered, gesturing at the girl. Oh, by the house colors, your dangerous little street rat is the eldest daughter of House Sano, Hoya grinned. Her mother must be delighted. Grateful that the food was already served, Dre, Roma, and Sin rushed the table, piling their plates high. The steward eyed the trio and was about to question them until he noticed Dre was dressed in Sano house colors of gray, silver, and black. Roma had a bow of that color holding back her curls, and Sin had one wrapped around his upper arm. I don't see your mom, Roma whispered, leaning across Sen towards Dre. Maybe we missed her, Senjab answered casually, pushing his way between them toward food, his real focus. Just eat so we can get out of here, Dre hushed him. Dre, her mother sighed from behind her. Dre flinched in surprise. The soft lilac perfume touched her nose. She stood to face her. The chair scraped across the floor, tipping. Roma caught it and set it upright, wishing she could disappear. Next to her, Sen moved to stand. Roma gripped his wrist and mouthed the word no. Dre was in a world where neither of them could protect her. Mother, Dre smiled, even as blood rushed to her cheeks. She curtsied low, as custom. Dre and her mother weren't what some would consider close. Dre spent more time with seamstresses and nursemaids. Look at you. Dre Sano lifted a strand of Dre's hair and let it fall again. Fighting. You have opportunity your friends can't dream of, you silly girl. Dre kept her eyes downcast. Mercenary law is the rule of the land, Mother. Father sees my efforts bring honor to the family. Honor. Is that what it looks like? Fatia touched Dre's bruises sadly. I just hate how you're wasting your talents. Look at you, beaten half to death. And all of this happened today, didn't it? By the old gods, look at your hands. She sighed in resignation. You know, your father is very sick, and if you were smart, the threat was only faintly veiled. Contracts her father had signed could be renegotiated by Fatia, and Fatia would wield Dre's future like a tool. Stop it, Mother, Dre whispered. I've met you halfway. I work for the house. I'm here. I'm doing your bidding out of loyalty to my father. This is not where my future lies. She glanced up at her mother's face, her mind questioning how close the day had come. Was her father worse? Fatia smiled softly and continued. You could stop this. You could stop this and focus on keeping your family guild happy. You have talents. You could do well at home. We're not, Dre was confused. We're not one yet, Fatia said, stepping closer and lowering her voice. If Akawan can do it, so can we. But you need to stop this. Come home, work full time, and perhaps marry someone useful. Even unwed. Dre, you have talents. You could elevate us both. Fatia was holding her hands, desperate in her argument. Dre met her mother's eyes. The hurt, disappointment, and concern were like a knife in her heart. The thought of marrying and spending the rest of her life sewing, that was worse. Fatia's chin tilted subtly towards one of the older Akawan boys. Lean, awkward, very available. Mom, Dre shook her head but offered no more resistance. Go mingle, Fatia encouraged, then commanded. Try, please. You might be surprised. Mother, Dre shook her head. I'm not. This isn't who I am. Please. I have worked hard to arrange a meeting. Jevan, she pointed discreetly. Please, talk to him. Dre sighed, smiling dully. It was impossible to say no to her mother for long. As she walked away, she watched her mother pull the clan colors out of Roma's hair and then off Sen's arm, pointing them towards the camp's exit from the corner of her eye. Sen scooped food from his plate into his hands, glaring at Fatia as he rushed out. Roma did the same, mashed potatoes dripping between her fingers. Roma giggled as she ran, best dinner party. Sen answered over his shoulder, Oh no, we get to eat and we don't have to look interested. Roma snorted as they ran. The steward made a weak attempt at chasing them to the exit, not really wanting to stop them, but not wanting to seem indifferent either. Because she was watching her friends, she was not watching where she was going, and nearly ran into Jume. He caught her by the shoulder before she collided with him. Careful, he smiled down at her, almost warm. Dre spat out a flustered apology before taking a double take. Oh, we had a contest earlier, an unfair one. Jume scanned the room, then met her eyes. You cheated, anyway, as I recall. Her eyes stayed on him, the real threat in the room. The smile was a slow shrug, like a predator pretending not to notice prey. Neither of us belong here, do we? He glanced around again. You with your bruises, me with... He paused, failing to find the word. He grimaced. Well, me. Trey couldn't help but like him a bit. This was the kind of man she'd choose to spend time with, not refined, not well-spoken. Still, the violence of their last encounter echoed itself in the wound at her hip. We don't belong here, she agreed, smiling. And yet here we are. What are your hopes for this party? Not to catch a husband, are you? What? Jume glared down at her. She nearly dropped her glass at the sudden change in his mood. He paused, then smiled slowly, catching the joke. That's your job, then. Dre nodded, about to leave. You don't belong in either world, do you, Dre? He smiled, gripping her arm lightly. Dre tilted her head, not sure if he was kidding. Frightened, but intrigued. A man in combat wasn't the same man over cups. Circumstances had set them against each other earlier today, and she knew better than to take tournament behavior personally. I have responsibilities in both, it seems, she smiled lightly. Jume was well known. She placed him now, Jume, the guild champion with a reputation for violence and victories. He couldn't let her get the upper hand. His career wouldn't stand it. Dre rolled her glass in her hand, considering him too long. His eyes stayed on her, predatory. They pricked her skin. She fought a shiver with a deep breath. Your mother doesn't approve of your activities. Jume gestured toward Fatia. The thumb of his other hand caressed her forearm. Sire, you seem to know a great deal of me. I only know your reputation. My friend Hoya is in the business of knowing things. Don't be alarmed. As for my reputation, not as bad as they claim, I assure you. Dre laughed despite herself. Everything in her instincts told her that he was exactly as bad as they claimed. His hold on her arm was too strong to escape politely, but subtle. He was revealing himself. Cunning, well-spoken, and dangerous. Jume continued. You don't have to continue down the path you have set for yourself. You could help your mother, perhaps wed into a mercenary guild. He glanced down at her from the corner of his eye, still watching where Fatia mingled. Do you offer yourself, then? Dre asked, imagining this all a joke. Her tone was dry enough to kill a houseplant. I do. Jume focused his attention on her. Dre looked up, her mouth agape. Stunned. Why? Jume laughed. Thunderous, drawing eyes. Why? You're beautiful, young, and no doubt fertile. She blinked at him, quietly stunned. And my mother told me romance didn't benefit growing houses. June frowned slightly. She's right. He thought for a moment. True romance grows over years of dedication. Marriage is a contract toward mutual benefit. Your clan is on the rise, and you have a spirit that I respect. I don't require anything more. I doubt you could meet my dowry, sir. Besides, I'm contracted with Tassos, as you know. Dre took an instinctive step back. June released her arm with a smile. Closed on her. You would be surprised what I can do, Dre. Dre froze. He was so close that she had to tilt her head back. He smelled of cedar and leather. He didn't touch her, but her body screamed danger. A hand went to his chest as she stepped back. Looking up at him, she trembled. Seeing her disarmed, on the run like a rabbit, June felt the pulse in his ears. He was driven to take another step forward, hoping to see her back up again, to retreat, to tremble again. He stepped, smiling. Dre retreated. His fingers brushed her elbow. I'll be at Rolling Thunder later. I hope to see you in a less formal setting. Perhaps we can dance again. He turned away, entering a conversation with a group of men. He joined a tall, thin man Dre had seen earlier that day. She could only guess it was Hoya. Dre turned and moved fast, setting her cup down and heading towards the nearest door. He'd called it a dance. The retreat, the threat of his body, the contrast of his smile. She needed air and space. A tall Akawan boy moved to intercept her as she left. She pushed past him and broke into a run once she passed through the door and entered the darkness outside. Her legs shook, her stomach rolled, safe from prying eyes and a world more dangerous than daggers. Chapter 3. The Mercenary's Bride. Hoy slinked up to June. I think he frightened her friend. June shot him a side eye and a frown. Maybe. He smiled, remembering her frightened retreat. I did well enough. I like her. He grimaced. Hoya raised an eyebrow. Nothing says romance like chasing a girl into the shadows and making her bolt like a spooked rabbit. June smiled, unbothered by Hoya's comment. Women like a little fear. It blooms into respect. And then, when she sees what I can do for her, love. Hoya considered. He knew better than to argue. Having some kind of affection is important in these matters. June grunted, rubbing his chin and thinking out loud. I'll rarely be in the capital. She doesn't have to like me, but tying ourselves to her guild, that boosts Guild Sifis. It's honor, it's income. He shrugged. She could give me some fat airs, maybe even continue to work in her family guild. Hoya tisked and rolled his eyes in a way that irritated June. There's a problem. Of course, well, two. She's contracted to Tassos. We could buy her out. Second, she has a considerable dowry. She's an expensive bride. June shot Hoya a burning glance. The girl has no place in a mercenary guild. She's a little rabbit that dreams of glory. She'll end up dead in some stinking puddle. I know that. And so does her mother. He gestured at Fatia from across the room. So, you expect Fatia Sano to simply gift you the girl, to save her from herself? Hoya glanced from June to Fatia and back, then examined his nails. Optimistic, but not impossible. I have a plan. Outside the pavilion, Dre paused at a fountain. Her fists were clenched at her sides, and she forced her breath to steady. A breeze ruffled her hair and cooled her cheeks. June had frightened her, and she wasn't used to being frightened. Excuse me, Dre. A man's voice asked from behind. She turned, surprised to see the slender Akawan boy. He approached cautiously, a gentle smile on his lips. If I'm not seen talking to you, my mother will tear my hide, he said by way of apology. Dre relaxed. Mine too, she agreed, then paused. I mean, mine would tear my hide. He smiled, ignoring her missteps. I'm Tevan. He extended a hand, palm up. Dre placed hers in his, and he bowed, pressing his forehead to the back of her hand. Not a kiss, just respect. After Jim's performance, the difference mattered. I'm honored, Chevin. Oh, I'm honored, Chevin. Drake completed the small ceremony and glanced towards the exit. A member of the guild Sano watched, ensuring etiquette was followed. Seems promises have been made, Dre whispered. Chevin straightened and met her eyes. He nodded solemnly. You know, she said, unsure how to continue. I'm contracted to Tassos. Your mother believes you'll forfeit, he whispered, apologetic. Dre shook her head. Ridiculous. Chevin, could you love a woman in a mercenary guild? No, he said softly, sadly. But only because I love another. Then we're aligned in our needs to see this fail. She said quietly. We are, but I won't dishonor you with a baseless rejection. Please, don't do the same to me. His hand touched her shoulder, but instead, his hand almost touched her shoulder, but instead brushed a lock of hair from her face before returning to his side. Dre laughed softly. Honor in this world only moves me further from what I want. She rocked back slightly, teetering as if she might fall into the fountain. Chevin caught her before she went in, his body against hers. He whispered in her ear, Honor in any world is valuable, Dre. Don't be in a rush to discard what might save you later. Shh. He set her upright and dropped to one knee, loudly proclaiming, Forgive me, Dre. I couldn't let you fall. She fought the urge to laugh. She hadn't been this close to falling. She hadn't been this close to truly falling in years. Still, it made good theater. Dre extended a hand to his head, continuing the performance. Rise, sir. Your actions saved me. Please accept my gratitude. Chevin stood, eyes on hers as he rose. Give me time, Dre. It'll help us both. Dre could only nod. Thank you. This is enough time together, I think, for a first encounter. He extended his hand again. Dre dropped hers into it, and he pressed his forehead to the back of her hand. He smiled and turned. Until next time, Dre Sano. Chevin added real affection to her name that made Dre smile despite herself. Sarette watched the two young people below, observing body language, ensuring proper behavior. His focus was on Dre. He noted the artificial loss of balance, the catch on Chevin's part, the extended embrace. He smiled broadly. Little minx. He could hardly believe she was doing so well. Her mother will be overjoyed. Sarette spun on his heel and rushed to Fatia to report Dre's obvious success. Hoya watched Fatia Sano walk to the edge of the party and quietly listen to a whispered report from a Sano agent. The information seemed to please the woman. As she lingered at the edge of the party, smiling to herself, Hoya approached. Fatia Sano, he greeted with a slight bow. I am Hoya, second of the Siphos Mercenary Guild. Your daughter has recently come to our attention. Fatia frowned, turning partially away. No, I have no interest in letting that girl continue as a soldier. The word rotted in her mouth. No, my lady. You misunderstand. My guildmaster, the esteemed Jum Carrick, wishes to wed her. The woman turned back toward him, eyebrow raised. He continued, Lady Sano, you wouldn't find a man more tested in steel and fire than Jum Carrick. He's not only undefeated in the ring, but commands loyalty like a banner in the wind. Your daughter would have strength, legacy, and no shortage of gold at her side. Point him out, Fatia asked, intrigued. Hoya frowned slightly, then gestured in the direction of Jum. There's the ugly lump. That's not a lump. It's an entire avalanche, Fatia laughed. He's too old. A beast in party clothes. I would never give to my daughter to someone like him. I have far better options. Hoya nodded. He was ready for this. Lady. Your daughter herself is unrefined. Did I not see her earlier? Her face bruised like a two-coin harbor whore. Fatia shot Hoya a look, aghast. Her hand went to her heart. Before she could speak, Hoya continued. We both know that that stubborn girl won't forfeit her contract to Tassos. Her future is death in a stinking village miles away. Fatia looked up, shocked, nearly ready to scream. Unless you help me, madame, Hoya pleaded, sincere and kind. I can help dissolve her mercenary contract. Quietly. June can make her happy, or, at the very least, safe. June would appear only twice a year, perhaps, enough to honor the union and ensure a legacy. The rest of the time, your daughter remains here, safe, under your eye. Fatia stepped away, staggered from Hoya's argument. She remembered Dre's face, her hands, and began to seriously consider his words. It was true. Dre would have to willingly forfeit. Fatia remembered the news that she had just heard, her daughter pretending to fall into the fountain to seduce Taven. She will forfeit. Get out of my sight, she spat, stepping forward and past Hoya. Hoya bowed to her retreating form, then turned. His shoulders slumped, mind already drafting an apology to June. Chapter 4. The Fool's Shield. The air of the festival shifted. The last notes of courtly music faded into laughter, shouting, and the drum beats of drinking games. Far from the polished fountain and its scandals, another fire crackled. This one surrounded not by nobles, but mercenaries. While Fatia left fury and silk in her wake, Roma walked barefoot through the grass, licking mashed potatoes off of her fingers. Are you coming with me to Rolling Thunder? Always a good place for dance and fun after a long festival day. I gotta put Cade to bed, Sinjab sighed regretfully. He won't let me out tonight. I compete tomorrow. Do you need help? Roma hated to leave Sinjab of the inglorious task of pulling the drunken guildmaster out of the spotlight. Sen didn't answer, and the two walked together back to their camp. Cade had started pitting willing and often drunken fighters against each other in the staff game. It was a good time to start bets. The crowd was loosening up and eager to participate. He was weaving back and forth while settling an argument between two fully drunk competitors, one of whom was a sore loser. Sen and Roma walked directly towards him until Cade flashed the guild sign language for pause mission until signal. Sen and Roma casually changed directions and sat by the fire. Little Sinjab, you're on fire, Roma teased, setting in the grass beside him. A mix of anger and devotion had been rolling off of him since they escaped the feast. Get out of my head, Roma, Sen growled. Get your thoughts out of mine, Roma countered, giving him a push. You can see my thoughts? Goddess, no. Just feel. I don't have to see it. For instance, now I feel that you're embarrassed. You're still a squirrel, she murmured, brushing hair from his eyes. Always chewing on something, always hiding a piece of yourself. You just don't like how big the squirrel's gotten, he muttered, jaw tight. She smiled, soft and sad. No, I don't like watching you get sharp like this. Sinjab looked at the dirt, trying to pry a rock up with his fingers. Your secret's safe with me, squirrel. Roma pulled him close and kissed his temple. Sinjab was only 2 or 3 years younger than she and Dre, but those were the years that separated boys from women. He was no exception. She's good, he said. Roma laughed. She's the best. She's not the best, Roma. She's just the best of us. Maybe she should listen to her mother. Sinjab picked at the ground, tossing a small rock on the fire. Stop that talk. If she heard you, Roma warned. She could stay with her clan. She could, I don't know, something safer, something better than this, Sinjab stammered, not sure what a better life would include, only that it had to be better than what he and Roma had. Yeah, you're right. She could be safer at home, Roma said, continuing as Senjab looked up in surprise. She'll just dedicate her whole life to doing something that she's really good at, but hates. She'll make her mom happy, who is just a joy to be around. But, she gets to sleep in a bed every night, probably next to some fat merchant's son, or even worse, some inbred lesser royal. Roma tossed the stick back to the fire. How long would a life like that take to burn her friend down? Sinjab gave her a side eye and flung a fistful of dirt into the flames. Roma had been with the guild for a few years, but Sin had grown up in Tassos, maybe even born to it. His earliest memories were of Cade's voice teaching him words, of scrubbing blood from Cade's armor, of walking miles from the northern coast to the southern marches, sometimes on foot, sometimes riding Cade's shoulders. He trained harder than anyone, mornings before the sun, nights after the fires died. Dre was their star, sure, but Sen carried the secret Cade had forced him to keep. She wasn't the best. He was. Yeah, I guess. Sen relented, quieter now. Roma felt the air shift and shivered. The mood was changing. It did that sometimes. One foul mood feeding another. With too much drink, a crowd could suddenly turn. I need to talk to Cade, she said, rolling to her feet. Senjab followed. Cade was stumbling back from two contestants who had dropped the staff and now were simply punching each other. The crowd hollered. Cade waved in a bet collector and shouted, "Double forfeit! House wins!" The crowd roared in anger. Coins were flicked at Cade and the collector. Other gamblers stopped off in disgust. One man near the front hissed and drew back a coat, just enough for firelight to flash on steel. Cade bent to pick up the coins, but fell forward onto his face, then rolled to his side, laughing drunkenly. Roma knelt beside him. She could feel the crowd shift again, anger softening into amusement, then pity. "This is the last time," Roma shouted at him, hoping to disrupt the mood of the crowd. "You spent all of the guild's earning on mead. You daft bastard!" She kicked at him, trying to make it look harder than it was. Cade cried out, groaning and laughing stupidly. Sten reached a hand down. Cade took it, pulled hard, and they both stumbled before Sten caught his balance. Roma scooped Cade's arm up over his shoulders. "Show's over, folks. Go to your camps," Sten called, leading Cade away. Cade mumbled and swayed the whole walk. At one point, he paused, as if to vomit, but it was a false alarm. Roma scanned the crowd. Disgust, superiority, pity. Even the angry ones wouldn't touch Cade now. It would be beneath them. By the time they reached the tent, the crowd had thinned. Mostly Tassos members remained. A few gamblers lingered at the edges, swapping jokes and a coin. The guild looked ragged in the firelight, its members split between the tragically old and pitifully young. Two boys, barely out of swaddling clothes, slept on bundled rags at the feet of a grizzled veteran. He spoke softly to a 10-year-old, demonstrating how to sharpen a dagger, his voice steady as a whetstone. Sinjab pushed Cade through the tent flaps. Roma followed, her hand resting on his back. Inside the tent, Cade straightened, his shoulders rolled, stretched. The act of drunkenness slid off him like a discarded cloak. Roma flinched and pulled her hand back. She'd never touched him in the moment that his mask dropped. It felt too real, too intimate, and it chilled her. "I don't understand why you insist on doing this," Sen said gruffly. "They think I'm too drunk to be dangerous. It makes people feel better about losing. Either to a clown or a king, but can't afford to be kings. So we're clowns," Sen grumbled. "Clowns live longer, and no one expects them to pay taxes," Cade grinned, then shrugged, continuing. "Today, this year, let them bet against us. Let them underestimate us. It protects us and pays us." "Then why let Dre win all day?" Roma snapped. "Why?" Cade looked at Sinjab. Sen frowned. "If she wins, they'll think we're good despite the guild. They'll assume we have a few exceptions, not a system that works. So, you didn't let me take her place, even though I could." Cade nodded. "Good lad. You're next year. But jobs, Roma pushed. Who hires the joke? Let me worry about that, girl. Dex? Kate never used his nickname. Tomorrow's a big day. Check your gear and get some rest. With that, Cade waved them off. Good night, Sen and Roma said in unison as they hugged. Roma looked around. Now that only guild members remained, it was obvious. Tassos was more orphan than guild. 200 adult soldiers, 100 children, 3 infants. According to imperial law, any guild, noble house, or city-state could declare war on another. A small, scheduled battle decided the outcome: land, ransom, or leverage. Tassos wasn't a guild. It was a sanctuary built on lies, blood, and coin. And Cade was the one thing that kept it breathing. Chapter 5. Touched by Fire. Roma could feel the change in the air, all the young people performing their various mating rituals. She was getting drunk, and it was getting harder to block out the desires of others. She sipped her drink. Sometimes it was someone was talking to her, but she couldn't focus on the words. Swaying slightly, she closed her eyes, imagining a wall of light surrounding her, pushing out all of the noise. Just practicing the meditation brought the smell of Cade's leather and tobacco. Her mind calmed slightly. She looked up the talking head. It belonged to a tall young man with dark hair. She didn't know him, and she was sure he wasn't the first person who brought her or Dre a cup that night. Roma looked into her glass. How many had she had, exactly? She squinted at it, like it held the answer. It did not. Look at me. The voice shot through her mind, louder than words could have been. For a moment, she thought it came from her cup. Then she realized that it was the man in front of her. The light shield shattered, and the minds around her rolled back into her head. She looked up at the young man. What did you say? I said, you look beautiful tonight. Have you been with Tassos for long? Oh, Roma paused in her mind. She saw a flash of her own breasts being groped by his hands. She shook herself. These were not her thoughts. What do you do at Tassos Guild? The young man asked. I'm a mystic, she answered quietly, pushing the invading thoughts out of her mind. She blinked, trying to bring the light back. Calm, light, safe white light. Not an herbalist? He asked, stepping closer for some reason. Dre laughed from behind her. Roma stepped back and brushed against the man talking to Dre. She slipped into his mind and saw Dre's laughing mouth, her red lips, her wicked eyes, the smooth curve of her shoulder. Roma was overwhelmed with desire for her. His desire. She saw his hand curl around Dre's throat, laughing at her terror. Roma gasped, dropping her drink. Oh, excuse me. The man talking to Dre turned and stepped away from Roma. Get away from me, she pushed him. What? The man stepped back, anger and confusion on his face. Dre's fingers brushed Roma's wrists. It's okay, Roma. This is Joom. That guy. Dre laughed. The guy that threw me? Get off her. Don't touch her again. Roma pushed again. Roma? Dre grabbed hold of her friend, wrapping her arms tightly around her. I'm spinning, Dre. They're all getting inside of me. You're in danger. Roma grabbed Dre's hands and pressed her forehead to her friend's. Darkness and stillness. A raft floating in an endless ocean, bobbing. There on the raft, just the two girls, holding each other, stars above, black below. This was older than Cade's teaching, something that only existed with Dre. No matter how bad it was, Dre could take her to that quiet place. She's just drunk, Dre. I can send for an escort and get her to a tent. Jim's hand slid up Dre's shoulder, over the side of her neck and into her hair. He pulled gently and whispered in her ear, Don't leave just yet. Dre shivered. The raft rocked in a wave. In Roma's mind, bright blue light raced under the water, schools of fish that glowed like blue lightning. Dre disappeared from the raft. Dre, please, I'm not safe here, Roma begged quietly. I'm sorry. Dre pulled Roma close. I can't block them out, Roma whispered. I'm gonna burn. Dre didn't ask questions. She just moved, fast, gripping Roma's arm and ducking through the crowd like they were escaping fire. Jim watched, his expression unreadable as he melted back into the crowd. Roma gasped. Her eyes opened. They were alone and outside the camp, away from the fire. I walked us out, Dre explained. I drank too much, Roma said apologetically. Me too, Dre nodded. Can we go farther away? Even away from the fire, they were surrounded by tents filled with dreams, passionate embraces, and whispered fights. A dull roar threatened to overrun her. Dre considered. We could go to the pond for a bath. The water will do you good. Roma nodded. A single fat tear rolled down her cheek. The girls walked down the lane, leaning against each other, stumbling occasionally and giggling. Roma felt better. She couldn't block out Dre, but she didn't need to. Dre's mind was a calm oasis. There were clouds far off and a quiet sense of danger, but Dre kept it back. Roma knew, if she dug deep, there were monsters, but the surface was pristine, the water calm, and no threat came from the black depths. I think I'm okay now, Roma murmured, but the edge in her voice betrayed her. The road ahead was quiet, but the hairs on her arms lifted. The sun follows us, Dre. It's only a guard, Roma. Dre saw the shift. Roma had gone deep. The exact kind of thing that Cade didn't want people seeing. Her oracle abilities. Where are you girls heading? He asked, a pleasant expression on his voice. To the pond for a bath, Dre answered. Roma's eyes were glazed. I'm going to touch it, Dre. Pull me from the fire if I go in, Roma announced in a sing-song way. Roma let go of Dre, stepping toward the guard, her hand extended, her other hand blocking her eyes. The guard stood completely still, as if Roma had suddenly manifested herself into a wasp and was about to land on her. Roma's hand found his breastplate. She unshielded her eyes and looked into his face. Another hand clasped his cheek. Not the sun. Only so much goodness in one place. Your halberd. One side holds life, the other death. Do you get to choose? Roma smiled, pulling him close. I know you. I've known you. Finally, in his ear, I'll know you again. Dre grabbed Roma by the waist and pulled her away from the guard. She is very drunk, the guard sighed. Mystic? Yes, Dre answered, stumbling with Roma. My brother's the same when he gets drunk. He pointed at Roma, that was a first. But my brother's the same. He says odd things, can't control him. Some come true, some just... He shrugged. Dre nodded. All right. The pond is closed for bathing tonight, but I'll stand guard. She could use a dunk. Thank you. Who are you besides a very kind guard? Oh, Eddic laughed quietly. Eddic's fine. Eddic knew Dre. He had seen her fight earlier that day. But the other one, he would remember a woman like that. The vision seemed to have left her now, and they both stumbled happily and quite drunkenly down the lane. Lovely girls. They reminded him a bit of himself and his brother, always in trouble. Upon reaching the pond, the girls stripped down and dove in. Eddic looked down the lane to protect their modesty, as if they had any. He smiled to himself. I'm protecting wild things, not ladies of the kingdom. Splashing and laughter confirmed his thoughts, and he leaned against the tree with a chuckle. Sweet girls. He was glad to be their shield. He worried about his brother, who had been taken not 2 years ago by the order of the Emperor's mystic herbalists, a strange group. His brother was hardly given a choice, stop practicing or join. A choice like that would be the same as stopping a man or join. He didn't choose to practice, it was what he was, so his brother disappeared. Same fate was not in store for this dark beauty. Women were not permitted to be herbalists, but the gift, as his family called it, could be a curse. The pond grew silent, and Eddic turned to check if all was well, not wanting to invade upon them, but wary of their condition. Roma treaded water in the moonlight. Her bosom treaded in the moonlight, feeling her bosom bob freely, pleasantly. Her hair was slicked back and cool water kissed her skin. Perhaps something was wrong. Edic pushed himself away from the tree, watching. Dre popped out from under the water just in front of Roma, who screamed and giggled in delight. Edic smiled, relaxing again. He was about to turn when Dre pulled Roma's head to hers, and they kissed, quick and gentle. They whispered to each other, foreheads pressed together, treading water and spinning in a slow circle. Not so much like my brother and me, then, Edic thought. He smiled faintly, but a knot of unease tugged at him. He was protecting wild things, not ladies of the kingdom. Wild things always drew hunters. He felt cold steel that had been slipped under his breastplate from the side. The flat of the blade was against him. Lovely, yes, but reckless. The man's voice whispered from Edic's right. Idiot, Edic whispered back. Edic pivoted fast. The knife blade was trapped beneath his stomach and armor. The dagger cut and bit into him, but the handle snapped from the attacker's hand. Edic caught him with a backhand. The attacker fell, sprawled. The other attacker darted forward, but Edic went low, sweeping the man's legs out from beneath him with his Quan Dao, dull side out. If they had had any training, they had drowned it in the same drink that took their common sense. Rising from a low stance, Edic caught the last in chin, sending him to his back with a shout. Edic gathered the daggers. What guild? He asked. Sifis, sir, the three responded. Edic narrowed his eyes. 5th rank? Attacking girls at a pond? The boy looked down. We're just testing the guard, making sure you're properly trained, that's all. Properly trained? Who are you to test me? Edic scoffed. Just a bit of fun. Our guildmaster wanted to check, the first boy continued. Shut up, the second boy elbowed him hard. Edic's stomach turned cold. This wasn't a brawl. This was a setup. Go tell your guildmaster that the guard is just fine. The attackers left him with 3 daggers and 3 Sifis 5th rank sashes in his hands. 5th rank idiots. He could have beat 6 of them sober, but then he would have had to hurt one of them seriously. Of course, that wasn't common knowledge. Edic scanned the trees. From the edge of the pond came the sound of hurried footsteps and the rustling of fabric. Dre's voice rose ahead of her. I heard a scream. Are you okay? You're bleeding, Roma declared. It's a scratch. Edic smiled. What's your guild, ladies? Tassos, Dre answered. Then let's get you safely home. Edic could barely relax the entire way. Roma was more coherent, and the girls were quiet, more sober and tired. When he reached the Tassos camp, he walked them to their tent, then went directly to the dimly lit tent that must belong to the guildmaster. Edic pulled the curtain softly, clearing his throat. Sir? He asked, the poorly lit darkness inside. Cade stirred from his cot, only half asleep. Enter. He sat up and looked at the young guard who came in. Sir, I brought your girls home, Roma and Dre. Edic pointed out the door. Thank you. Did they cause trouble? Not much, sir. Though Roma, Edic paused, unsure if he could trust the guildmaster with the truth. She had visions? Cade stood, reaching for the drawer. How much will the secret cost? She did, sir. It's not safe, Edic continued. No, she's not. Thank you. Cade extended his hand to shake. Edic reached out, shaking, and was about to turn to the door. There is another matter. Guild Sifis. Do the girls have some kind of history with them? Cade blinked, surprised, searching his memory. Jim was here briefly the other night. Tossed Dre. Edic half laughed, remembering. Some words were exchanged, but nothing more. Nothing anyone would take seriously. Edic explained the trip to the pond and back, leaving out irrelevant and private moments, including Roma's vision. He concluded with, the boys weren't drunk. They were 5th rank, Sifis. And one of them said they were testing the guard? Who in the hell would test a guard protecting 2 girls? Only someone who has already decided that one of those girls belonged to him. Cade's brow furrowed. I've heard things about Joom, his obsessions, how they turn out.